Hello. So this is a little bit different than how I normally do videos, but I wanted to tell a story since tomorrow is a very, very important, very special day at my house. Tomorrow is September 13th, and it is the birthday of my youngest two daughters. Now, it's really odd because sometimes people will hear me say the twins, or it's the girl's birthday, or my youngest two kids, or that I'm actually a mother of 3 girls. I had twins, and they only see one small child. Okay, so just to kind of clear that up right off the bat, Sadie has a twin sister. Her name is Chloe Grace. She passed away when the day they turned 3 months old from sudden infant death. Okay, I have told that story multiple times, but I don't think I've told it recently, and I may do that another time soon. But tomorrow is the day that they're 10 years old. 10 years ago, tomorrow morning, I was giving birth to twin girls. That's the story I'm going to tell. 10's a big one. 10's a big deal. And I've told this story so many times, but I don't know. I feel like that the more often you share things, the more opportunity it has to give other people insight to maybe why you are the way you are, or maybe it could potentially help someone else to know that there are other people going through the same things. So that's what I'm doing. Let me back up. My first husband, we were married for 10 years, and we got pregnant very soon with Faith. I think it was right before our first anniversary we found out we were having Faith. And one of the conversations that we had after Faith came along was, if we are going to have other kids, I don't want them to be this huge age gap, right? And so we had talked about, if we don't have another one by the time she is like 5, then she's going to be an only child. So the time came, and she was 5, and we had talked about it, and we finally came to the conclusion together that we would not do anything to actively prevent having a child, but we will not actively try, if that makes any sense. It was just kind of one of those things. We were leading it up to, the good Lord, if we were supposed to have another child, He would take care of that. So, after we stopped actively trying to prevent any children, it was literally a month later I was pregnant, and this was in January. We found out we were pregnant. My first doctor's appointment was the first week of February, and my ex-husband asked me if I wanted him to go with me to the appointment, and I said, no, there's no sense in it. They're going to look and say, yep, you're pregnant. Your due date is this. It's going to be a lot of waiting, a lot of paperwork, and a lot of, well, potentially this is when you're due, potentially this is when you conceive. And it's just kind of not the most glamorous doctor visit throughout the entire process, right? And he was like, okay, cool. So I went and I waited and I waited and I waited. And at first they do an ultrasound to kind of get a guesstimate of how far along you are. But I had left Faith with my mother-in-law, so she didn't have to hang out with me at the doctor's office. So they do my ultrasound, or they do all my checks, my tests and everything, and they call me back there to do my ultrasound. And by this point, so this was several weeks after the initial at-home pregnancy test. Okay? I was beginning to show, like, very, very much beginning to show. And I remember walking into the ultrasound room and saying, whew, I'm hoping you're fixing to tell me I'm about 5 months along, and 5 or 6 months along, and that means I'm on, the downhill slide and heading towards the finish line. And, she just laughed. I climbed up on the table. After a few minutes, she said, well, and this is the same woman that did all my ultrasounds with Faith and everything. She said, honey, you're only 6 weeks pregnant. And I said, her name was Amy. I said, are you kidding me? Look at my stomach. And she said, I understand. She said, but I want you to look at something for me. So I turned towards the screen. And she said, do you see this right here? I said, yeah. She said, well, that's a baby. Okay. Is everything okay? She said, well, do you see this right here? And I was like, yeah. She said, well, that's baby B. Excuse me? That's what? She said, congratulations, you're having twins. And I said, I'm what? She said, you're having twins. And I said, no, I'm not. No, I'm not. And she said, yes, congratulations. And I was like, no, I don't think you understand. And she's like, are you okay? Do you need to sit up? And I said, no, I don't think you understand. I said, my husband is going to die. Now, in hindsight, I think she was afraid that he was like physically going to kill me. That's not what I meant. Then because she asked me, do we need to call somebody? And I was like, no, I don't think you understand. We have thought long and hard about whether we were going to have any more kids or not. We decided that, whatever happens, happens. And now I have to go home and tell this man we're having 2. And she was like, oh, it'll be fine. I was like, yep. Finished my appointment. She's like, you're going to be due sometime around September. Okay. So they print off all these pictures for me. I call my mom and I asked if she was at home. And she said yes. And I said, okay. Called my mother-in-law and I said, why don't you and Faith meet me at Mom's house and I'll show you the pictures. And so I think they were already at my mom's by the time I got there. I think. I'm almost positive. And this was 10 years ago. And so I walked in and I handed Faith the pictures. And she was like, what is this? Faith was, I think she just turned 6. And she looked And she's like, why does it say baby A and baby B? And I was like, yeah, what do you think? And Mom was like, no, there's two? You're having twins? And my mom and my mother-in-law, they just went crazy stupid, as did Faith. And at that time, I had still not told my ex-husband, my husband at the time. He was at work. So I made my mother-in-law promise me, you cannot tell Papa, which was my ex-husband's, it's his dad, and you cannot call him while he's at work. I will tell him. So me and Faith went home. We were sitting on the couch when Matt got home. He walked in the front door, and I did what every self-respecting wife and mother would do. I made the 6-year-old tell him. He walked in. Faith looked at him and said, hey, do you want to see pictures of the babies? And he said, sure, because she was all excited. She said, did you hear what I said? Do you want to see pictures of the babies? And he said, And he looked at me, and he could, I guess it was all over my face, and he said, are you serious? And I said, yep, congrats, it's twins. And he said, of course it is. Naturally, why would it not be? At this point, it might as well have been 12 babies at one time. And so began the long, grueling pregnancy of multiples. If you know anybody that has had twins or is pregnant with multiples, there is no way to explain it. It is absolutely impossible to try to explain to somebody who has never experienced it. The pregnancy was relatively normal. I did, because I wasn't old by any means. I was I was almost 30. I was 28, I guess. Is that right? Yeah, I was 28. But because it was twins, they wanted to, because that would consider me high risk, because I was high risk with Faith. And so I had to go to endless amounts of doctor's appointments. I had to travel to Jackson once a month at the beginning, and then towards the end I had to go every week. And I was having to go to the hospital in addition to my doctor's appointments to have stress tests done every week, every Monday. And if you have ever done that, you know, they put you on a monitor, baby monitor, for an hour to get the reading. Well, when you have two, it is quite difficult to keep them on the monitors at the same time. So I would lay there for hours, and they would get, an hour of one, and then the other one would fall off, and then we'd have to start all over again. And it was definitely an experience that I will never ever forget. We got towards the end. I could not eat. I weighed almost 300 pounds at this time, and I will actually insert a picture here that was taken 10 years ago today. It was the day before I gave birth, and I was humongous. When they do your glucose testing, I was considered to have pre-diabetes, the gestational diabetes. So it was enough that I had to test my sugar multiple times a day. I had to very much monitor what I was eating, but I didn't have to take any medication or anything. And towards the end, I physically could not eat because I had so much baby. I had no room for the food to go, and it was like it would stop right here, and I was absolutely miserable. Just to get out of bed, I had to have somebody help me. And Faith, bless her heart, she was my rock star. She helped me. She waited on me. Even Matt waited on me hand and foot at this point. I was supposed to be on bed rest for the last couple of months. We had actually had one of my aunts was at the coming to the end of her battle with cancer at that same time. So I wasn't necessarily in my bed on bed rest. I was at family's house a lot, but I stayed off my feet as much as possible. I swelled horribly. And at the end of my pregnancy, the doctor told me, she said, look, throw the testing strips out the window. Forget about your sugar at this time. If all you can eat is a milkshake, you have to eat a milkshake because you have got to maintain some type of calories, some type of something to your body. You've got to feed your body because I could not physically eat. And at the very end, I begged her and begged her and begged her to please, because we made it all the way to 38 weeks, and at about 35, because I'd read everything possible, I thought, or 37, I said, hey, healthy babies are born all the time under 37 weeks. Can we go ahead and do this? And she's like, I can't in good faith to deliver these babies early if there is not a reason to. So I told her, I said, because we were doing a scheduled C-section. I had an emergency C-section with Faith, so I already knew I was going to have one. No matter what the doctor said, I was having another C-section. And because this time I was doing 2. So she said, all right, you can have your babies any day this week. Just tell me what you want. And I said, what's the soonest? And she said, well, you can have them on Monday. And then she gave me like Thursday or Friday or something like that. And I was like, Monday. She said, are you sure? And I said, absolutely. And she said, well, that's the 13th. And people are kind of weird about the 13th. And I was like, whatever. I was born on the 13th. So let's roll with it. So that's what we did. We knew we were going to have our babies on September 13th. It was a Monday. I absolutely did not sleep at all the night before. And then at 9:55 a.m., Sadie Hope entered this world. And at 9:56 a.m., Chloe Grace entered this world. And here's where things kind of differ from a lot of other stories. So, at this time, of course, Matt was in there with me and heard Sadie cry, and then heard Chloe cry, and Matt, I will never forget him saying, oh, she sounds like a baby kitten. And immediately they whisked the babies off. They finished messing with my insides, sewed me up, took me to my room, and a few minutes later they came in there and told me that they were checking Sadie out, make sure everything was good with her, and that Chloe had a lot of fluid buildup. And they were just going to run some tests on her and really, really monitor her closely. So I can't remember how long after that. They finally brought me Sadie, and then they told me that they were sending Chloe to Vanderbilt Children's Hospital. And they would be taking her there on these special ambulances that are called Angels, and she was on Angel 1, and they brought her in to see me in the transport cart, I guess, for lack of a better term. I got to see her for literally, it felt like 60 seconds or less. I don't know if it was. and they shipped her to Nashville. Didn't know anything at the time other than she had a lot of swelling around, and she wasn't breathing on her own really well, and so they thought that maybe she had fluid in her lungs, and they wanted to make sure she didn't have any fluid around her brain or anything. And so shortly after that, sometime, I guess it was later on that evening, once everyone kind of found out that I was okay and Sadie was okay, Matt and Faith went to Nashville that night, and then he came back. Faith went to school the next day, and I think he went back. He took her to school the next morning, and I think he went back to Nashville because he came back by the hospital to see me. And so he went back and forth to Nashville 100 times in, a matter of 2 or 3 days. He didn't, but that's what it felt like, all while, taking Faith to school. And we depended a lot on family to help as far as Faith was concerned, because she couldn't miss school. And so he wasn't allowed to see Chloe or anything because they were running all these tests. And it was 3 days after giving birth to twins that I looked at my doctor and I said, look, you either have to discharge me or I'm leaving. Now, you have to remember, I couldn't just get up and walk out because I had to take Sadie with me. So, of course, me and my doctor had a very, very close-knit relationship. She, I had her cell phone number, and she was contacting Vanderbilt for me, as well as the girl's pediatrician. And the pediatrician is actually, I think, the one that recognized her, and my doctor were the ones that said, something isn't quite what we expected. And so I'll always forever be grateful to those two ladies. Dr. Christy Miner and Dr. Pam Evans were definitely my angels on earth, and they were keeping me updated with anything that they heard from the NICU, because as a parent, it's very difficult to get information through a phone with a hospital because of all the, I don't know, it's really weird. So she said that she would discharge me, but I was to go home and stay off my feet, and because I was swelling incredibly bad even after I had the girls. And I was like, I got you. Matt picked me up from the hospital. We got Faith, and we headed to Nash Vegas. And we stayed in Nashville for a couple of days. Sadie never left our side. I can't remember. Somebody in my family or his family came and picked Faith up. That way she could go, to school and everything. And me and him went back and forth with Sadie in tow every time. Her first road trip was, 2 days after she was born. And she could not have been any better. As far as she was a newborn, and it was very, very difficult to kind of get back into the swing of having a newborn while in the NICU. I don't know, it's really weird. But the first time that I got to put both of them together again after they were born, I think it was 5 days after they were born. And it was the coolest thing. They couldn't stay that way a lot, because now the nurses and doctors did say at one time it was very important for twins to be in the same sleeping space if one was in the NICU, because they felt like, it was very I don't know, just something about it was very soothing to both babies. But they would always run into problems with like wires and stuff. You know, the newborns move around, and you know, cords were getting jerked out and everything, so they didn't really do that anymore. But there were a couple of times that they let me, you know, just for a few minutes, put them in the same bed together. So to kind of cut out, you know, that part of it, we were there for 6 weeks, and we were adjusting, and we came home 6 weeks later with both babies, and we started our life as a family of 5, and that was 10 years ago tomorrow. And so we came home October 16th, and then on December 13th, Chloe actually passed away, and it had nothing to do with anything, you know, that went on during birth or anything. But so it's been different the last 10 years for sure. I definitely feel like Sadie has enough personality for both of them. I don't know. It's a very bittersweet time in my life, and I know Mac's husband's life, and you know, Faith, and I will never ever forget. And this is something that, you know, because I've asked Sadie time and time again, you know, do you feel like you're a twin? And I guess it's one of those questions that she just feels how she feels. She doesn't know any other way, because she was only 3 months old when Chloe passed away. And when we came home from the ER the night that Chloe did pass away, Faith was asleep in our bed. Sadie was asleep in her crib, because we had family there. And I remember we laid down next to Faith. Matt told Faith that Chloe had passed away, and immediately from her crib down the hall, across the hall, Sadie let out this bellowing scream, like blood curdling scream. And it was, I will never ever, there's lots of times that, and lots of moments that I'll never forget, but I will never ever forget, you know. And I don't know, it's, you know, everybody goes through stuff, and everybody goes through life, and people, you know, have tragedies, and things happen, and you know, we all have our own story. But I don't know, it's just it's a weird feeling. It's so hard to explain. And you know, one of the biggest struggles that I have is remembering that I still have 2 that, you know, that I'm living for every day. And one thing that I heard, and I still continue to hear it time and time again, is it'll get better with time. It'll get better with time. Let me tell you something. It's not going to get better with time. It will never get better, no matter how much time passes. It's been 10 years, 3 months shy of 10 years, and it don't get better. It gets different. Don't get easier. It gets different, if that makes any sense. You know, I don't know. It's definitely survivable. There are not worse things to survive, in my opinion. I don't feel like a hero by any means, so please don't take that at this, but you will get through it if you have endured any type of loss. You can get through it. You will get through it, but it's gonna take time and work and grace. You have to allow yourself grace and forgiveness, which is also something that I struggle a lot with. I don't want to get too much off on that because that's not what this video is. I wanted to share how my girls entered this world, that I am a mother of 3. I have a 16, almost 17-year-old. Talk about a shot to the gut. And as of tomorrow, I have a 10-year-old. And I cannot, and this sounds so cliche, I cannot imagine our lives without Sadie Hope. Hopeless, as I call her. And that really offends people whenever I call her that. I don't know why. My nickname was Bookie Baby. So, I mean, let's be real. Or Book. I don't think hopeless is that bad. But I wanted to share how my baby girls have entered the world and celebrate 10 years on this earth with my Hopeless. But I will insert some pictures of the first time that they were back together, Sadie and Chloe, after they were born. I will share some pictures of when they were born. I will also include a picture of when Faith got to hold both of her sisters for the very first time. So I just wanted to share that and let people know that don't know. Yes, I am a twin mom. I don't have the living horror stories of being a twin mom. I can't speak to past the 3-month mark. I can't talk about the experience with 2 toddlers walking and talking at the same time. I can't share experience with potty training 2 toddlers at the same time. But I can share my experience with being pregnant with multiples. I can share my NICU experience. I can share my surviving loss experience. And that's what I wanted to do. So the 13th is a very, very special day for us. It's a very special number. If you ever see me post about, go figure, the 13, that's kind of where it all stems from. My birthday is the 13th of March. The twins were born on September 13th. Chloe passed away on December 13th. Throughout the years, Faith randomly has had 13 as a softball number. Sadie is in the fourth grade, and 3 of the 5 years she's been in school, her cubby or desk number was 13. So that's, I don't know, it's one of those things that it definitely, why would it not be? But I just wanted to share that with y'all, and I hope now maybe you understand a little bit more of who I am, as well as my twin girls. Y'all, they're 10 tomorrow. So, until my next story time, I will catch you guys next time. Peace.